Ever think your gun safe was quietly doubling as an investment portfolio? Think again. Some firearms seem like a clever buy at first glance, but wind up performing about as well as a broken stapler when it comes time to sell or trade. In this breakdown, we're diving into 15 firearms that tanked in resale value so badly, you'd have been better off stacking bricks of bulk ammo instead. These handguns and rifles showed up with big marketing buzz, but the minute they left the shop counter, they started bleeding value faster than a leaky canteen. If you've ever spotted a deal that felt a little too perfect, this list might save you from lighting your wallet on fire. Number 10. Remington R51. This handgun had one of the most dramatic crashes in recent memory. Originally priced near $500, the Remington R51 was supposed to be a slick retro reboot. But try offloading one today, and you'll be lucky to get $200. You may as well have burned the other 300. What happened? Straight from the factory, folks were dealing with brutal feeding issues, shredded casings, and slide malfunctions that made it seem like the gun hated ammo on principle. The trigger felt like dry firing a rusted hole punch, and even after Remington issued a recall and sent out revised versions, the damage was already done. It was marketed as having a unique locking system, but clever engineering means nothing if the gun refuses to cycle right. These days, trying to trade one in gets you more chuckles than offers, losing over half your firearm's value. That fast isn't just a miss. It's a full-blown failure, stamped with a serial number. Number 9. Remington RP9. This was Remington's swing at the striker-fired polymer pistol market. At launch, it hit the shelves around $400. Secondhand? Expect about $150, assuming anyone even wants it. That's a $250 drop just for the pleasure of owning one. The trigger pull felt like dragging a cinder block through wet gravel. The magazine, well, looked like it was carved with a spoon. And let's not forget the slide. Sometimes it just wouldn't return to battery. Reset was basically invisible. Gun stores got so fed up with them, many wouldn't even offer trade credit. That's when you know you've got a paperweight. The polymer frame felt cheap, the finish rubbed off with a dirty rag, and the factory's sights looked like an afterthought from a toy gun. When people start comparing your product unfavorably to a high point, you've officially gone off the rails. Number 8. Freedom Ordnance FX9. On paper, an AR-style carbine, chambered in 9mm and fed by Glock mags, sounds like a win. At launch, they sold for about $700. On the used rack, around $400, if that. That's a $300 loss for a rifle that often broke under basic use. The magwell hated anything that wasn't a perfect factory Glock mag, and the bolt carrier had a reputation for cracking under light-range use. The trigger felt like it came from a $50 airsoft blaster, and the gas system was over-engineered for what should have been a simple blowback setup. It looked the part but rarely performed. A few shooters managed to get decent performance with aftermarket tweaks, but most gave up and moved on. Some pawn shops will still take them, but don't expect more than a shrug and a lowball offer. Great idea, bad execution. Number 7. Kel-Tec Sub 2000 First Generation. Folding pistol caliber carbines are a clever concept, and when the first gen Sub 2000 launched at around $400, it sparked real interest. But now, you'll be lucky to move one for $200. The trigger was gritty, like an old gate latch, and the front sight couldn't hold zero if its life depended on it. The cheek weld was more like cheek punishment, and the charging handle felt like bending a coat hanger. The bolt frequently stuck halfway through its cycle. Sure, it folded down for storage, but most folks found it unpleasant to shoot and clunky to run. Once the second generation addressed many of these flaws, the original version faded into obscurity. These days, it's mostly relegated to back-of-the-closet duty, or the used rack at deep discount. Number 6. Beretta Nano. With a sleek name like Nano, this pistol promised modern concealment, ready firepower. It entered the market at about $450, but now you'll be lucky to pull $200, a $250 gut punch. The trigger was heavy and gritty. Racking the slide took real effort, and feeding hollow points was a gamble. You'd get through half a mag, then get hung up on a jam. The grip felt surprisingly good, which made its issues even more frustrating. It felt like it should be great, but the reliability wasn't there. Once Beretta introduced the APX carry, the Nano's value cratered. Today, it mostly collects dust in the used case. Even budget buyers are willing to stretch their budget a little further to avoid this one. When a pistol gets a reputation for unreliability, it doesn't matter how it feels in the hand. Nobody's lining up to buy it. Number 5. Bushmaster XM15 Post-ban models. During the high-anxiety buying frenzies of years past, these rifles flew off shelves like bottled water before a storm. Retail price? Around $900. But if you're trying to resell one today, $600 is probably the best-case scenario. That's $300 evaporated quicker than a mag dump on steel. The rifles were wildly inconsistent out of the box. Some came with crooked front sights. Others had gritty, barely serviceable triggers. The buffer tubes felt like they'd been turned on a lathe made of bricks. And let's not forget the gas systems, way overpressured, causing cycling issues right out of the gate. The phosphate finish looked dry and chalky, and the charging handle had the smoothness of dragging a crowbar through sand. Even with aftermarket parts, most shooters found that the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. In a market saturated with solid AR pattern rifles, the XM15 just couldn't keep up. When just okay is the best thing you can say about a rifle, it's probably best left on the rack. Number 4. Inner Ordnance Incorporated AK-47. Somehow, Inner Ordnance managed to take the AK platform, famous worldwide for working under any condition, and build one so bad it could make a High Point blush. Brand new, they ran about $800, but nowadays, you're lucky to move one for $400. And that's if the buyer doesn't know what they're holding. These rifles were plagued with manufacturing disasters, warped receivers, cracked bolts, and head spacing so inconsistent it bordered on hazardous. Some would run barely, while others jammed so often you'd think they were allergic to ammo. The wood furniture looked like it had been glued on by someone who had never actually handled a rifle before, and the trigger assembly felt like it came from a children's toy aisle. These rifles dragged the AK's reputation through the mud, and that's saying something. Unless you're collecting examples of what not to do, this one's a hard pass. Number 3. SIG Sauer Mosquito. The SIG Mosquito looked like a compact dream for rimfire fans. Something fun and tactical in a .22 long rifle package. When it dropped, it demanded around $400, but now they barely move for $150. That's a $250 loss in exchange for jam after jam. The Mosquito was famously picky with ammo. It really only tolerated high-velocity loads. And even then, stovepipes were a constant threat. The trigger was mushy and unrefined. The decocker felt loose, and the polymer frame had all the charm of a dollar store squirt gun. Slide to frame, fit varied from unit to unit, and the sights often looked like an afterthought. SIG eventually pulled the plug without much fanfare, and few shooters were surprised. Today, most Mosquitoes serve as malfunction drills for beginner shooters, or get tossed in the regret pile in the safe. Number 2. Taurus Spectrum. Taurus tried to shake up the concealed carry scene with the Spectrum, tossing in bright colors and futuristic lines. Retail was about $300, but on the resale market, it now struggles to get $150, a 50% nosedive. The trigger was squishy and unresponsive, like squeezing a wet sponge. Worse still, the slide sometimes failed to return to battery, and the magazines often refused to seat properly. Not a good look on a carry gun. Sure, the grip texture was comfortable, and the styling turned heads, but none of that matters when the gun can't be trusted to cycle a full mag. The iron sights were so tiny, they felt like an afterthought, and the overall construction felt rushed. These pistols look good on paper, but in the real world, they're more headache than help. Most seasoned gun buyers steer clear once they've done their homework. Number 1. Century Arms C308. A budget-friendly clone of the iconic Heckler & Koch G3 sounds awesome in theory. And with a new price around $700, the Century Arms C308 seemed like a solid deal until the reality kicked in. Try to resell one now, and you'll be lucky to get $300, which is a $400 gut punch. The bolt gap issues were widespread, and ejection reliability changed depending on what ammo you fed it or what phase the moon was in. The trigger had all the finesse of a leaf blower, and the factory finish looked like it had been rolled on with a paintbrush. Some came with sights that were misaligned out of the box, and the stocks felt about as solid as lawn furniture, while a few brave souls managed to coax decent performance out of theirs with heavy tuning. Most shops see them as a liability. If you bring one in for trade, expect a lowball offer or just a polite no thanks. So there you have it, 15 firearms that turned solid cash into hard lessons. Some were plagued by bad design. Others just couldn't compete with better-built competition. Whether you've owned one yourself or dodged the bullet, they all serve as reminders that not every gun with a familiar name is worth your money. Got your own horror story? Drop it in the comments. And if you're into blunt, no-spin rundowns like this, hit that like button and subscribe. This is Ballistic Mindset, and we'll see you in the next one, hopefully with guns worth keeping.